Hi, today we have Dean Goold from Pacific Residential Mortgage. Dean and I go way back, and for almost 15 plus years.
Probably 06, 07-ish, probably.
Yeah. Well, first off, thank you for coming on today. It's great to have you. Like I said, this is something that a mutual friend of ours we got connected through Dean Sanders. Called me one day and he said, "Hey, you're big into like real estate and numbers and all that kind of stuff. I want you to meet a friend of mine." And I said, "Okay." He's like, "Just come to this dinner. And I'm like, wasn't really, sure about what I'm getting myself into, right? And then we ended up going to that old restaurant here in town.
Yeah.
Over there.
Mallards.
Yes.
Mallards.
Yeah, we're in Mallards. And you know what's funny about that? On a side note, we're actually gutting that place right now.
Really?
That church, that
Did it sell?
Yeah, it's sold.
Okay.
And so we're actually gutting the inside of it, and we're actually going to put a medical facility in that.
Oh, really?
Building. Yeah. Come full circle from where you and I met,
right,
to where I'm actually back in there, not talking about anything that we're related in business-wise. We're doing construction in there, which is kind of crazy.
Small world.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I remember meeting with you, and we sat there, and you had this chart, just all this stuff going on, and it's just everything's going through my mind, and I'm going, what am I getting myself into, right? And I think the best part of this whole, lesson that I've learned at that dinner was, how to make yourself successful, financially successful in every which way. And I understand certain things you want to cover and you don't want to cover, and I kind of value that because there's a lot of stuff I never thought about in life, and you taught me a lot. And I think throughout the years since 06 to now, it's like I've learned so much from you.
Well, look at you.
Yeah.
Doing well.
Thank you.
You've grown a lot since I met you.
Yeah.
I mean, not around, but financially.
I'm only like 5'8".
Okay.
I haven't grown that much, But I think, from that standpoint, I've learned so much to be able to build my own, like mini empire, right? Mm-hmm. Of just real estate and how to manage my finances and so forth. And also like, you've been the main factor of a lot of our, real estate acquisition on loans. So just want to say thank you. That's huge, and I don't think I would be here today if it wasn't for you.
Wow. Thank you. I was wondering why you invited me here.
Yeah.
Had that big of an impact on your life. So yeah, it's good to hear.
Yeah. After this, we'll get some moonshine and celebrate
again.
Yeah. Again. No, it's good. I've taken a lot out of, what you've taught me and try to educate me on, because not only you're just doing just the lending part of it, but you've also taught me how to be financially successful, to ensure myself to have stability into a chapter where I can make real estate acquisition. You see what I'm saying? And that's where your guidance has helped me. And I don't know, maybe it was at the time, it's only like a sales ploy for you to, hook, line, and sinker. You got me all hooked, and then and kind of put that, in a perspective. And it's like, and now, like, at the end of the day, it's like anything that I need, I usually just come to you now, right? And I just like, hey, look, I'm thinking about making this acquisition. What are your thoughts? And you always give me the most logical, reasoning. Not just, hey, can you afford it?
Right.
But just from aspects of just economics or just the reality of it, so that you can always knock some sense into me, saying like, hey, Wilson, I think that's just a stupid buy, because you're not gonna be able to scale and be able to be a good investment for you, right? So I feel like that's those are the kind of things that I value, because anyone can just do what you do, right? And then just be like, hey, let's go make a deal, and give me your stuff and give you a loan, and I'm done. Where you kind of have always nurtured that relationship and made sure that I'm always like looking out for the best interest for like me and my family, right? So it really means a lot. So that's so awesome. You know what? I got a question for you. What got you into this business?
Well, kind of by accident. I mean, I was, when I first graduated from college, I was playing a professional volleyball league, and I ran into some guys who were in the staffing business, and they invited me to go to work for a company called Aerotech, and which the owner actually owns the Baltimore Ravens now, Stephen Bisciotti.
Really?
Yeah. So I did that in 1997, and then the market, everything was going great, and then the market started to crash in the staffing industry. The dot-com bubble occurred in '01, and then real estate was doing well, and some of the guys I worked with there were pretty high up, and we all got a really good sales foundation and professional background, and they did a great job of training us. And then we decided we wanted to move into something that was a little more lucrative potentially, that had a little more freedom, entrepreneurial spirit. So, because I was working for a company that just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and all of a sudden, one day I'm sitting at a desk going, do I want to do this in 5 years from now? And the answer was no. So I made a decision to pursue real estate lending and get my real estate license. And then the market was doing well at that time, started moonlighting, making more money at night than it was during the day at that time. And then we were moving back to Stockton, so came back here and got into the business.
So you're saying you're making more money than strippers at night than during the day?
No, not exactly. I was making more money doing loans, because at that time rates were so low you could run into any conversation you had, you were going to do a deal. So, and I saw the lack of professionalism in the industry, and so we had been trained very well at Aerotech, and so they gave us a good background. We worked a lot of hours. We learned work ethic and professionalism, and so just tried to bring that into the financial services world. And at the time, the mortgage lenders I saw at that time were not very professional at all. They
really?
were wearing shorts and flip-flops to work, and in my opinion, overcharging people and stuff. So I looked at it and said, there's a lot of room for improvement in this industry.
So you don't really embrace Aloha Fridays then?
Well, the longer I've been in the business, the more casual I do dress. But during COVID, I could wear flip-flops because no one could come to my office. But no, so that's how I got into it. Yeah.
Really? Yeah. And from that point, I know when I first met you, it was a different company name to where you're at now. And is this something common that you see in the industry where, like, one entity gets bought out by another to another and so forth as it goes, or how does that kind of roll in your world?
You'll see a lot of people in the industry jump around from company to company. I've tried not to do that. Usually when you do that, you're normally not doing great where you are, or you're chasing, the grass isn't always greener once you get there. So we started out formulating a company called Verdeo Funding, Verdeo Services, and they were a broker. And essentially what happened was, part of it was there was financial education there, and that's what you had discussed. And so when the market crashed in the housing market in 06, 07, I went back and did a lot of education on myself, because I just realized, hey, people are coming to me, they're giving me all their financial information. Why don't I try to give them a little more education along the way? So I went and passed the Series 65, so I could be a registered investment advisor, which I'm not activated, but and gotten insurance education, stuff like that. So that's where we brought more of a holistic approach to the financial process. And then as people came to us with mortgage information, it's allowed me to really educate and help them much more than just quoting a rate and trying to give a product, but really taking a holistic approach to their financial situation and trying to help them make macro financial decisions, not micro. And that's the problem I see most of the time, is people are making micro decisions where they're just chasing a low rate, but there's so much more to it than that. And so that's, actually the downturn in the housing market really helped me as I look back on it, because it forced me to go get more education.
Oh, okay.
So
no, I think that's awesome, because I remember when you had that, it's like the cube or something like that, I remember, and you had to you were saying like, hey, make sure you're not put all your eggs in, like, in the sense of like one basket, but like you have a variety,
right,
of ways to feel your financial, stability. And
right,
and I remember there was like one that was like gold and jewelry or something like that, and there was one that was like liquid market and stocks and all these different things, and and it's one of those things I actually still carry with me to this day, because, you know, I look back at that, I'm going like, I have followed those steps and I've kind of checked those boxes off in a sense, right? Saying like, you know what, one day I was like, you know, I want to, as stupid as it sounds, I never owned a gold coin before. Like, now just go buy one, right? And just start looking into it, right? And so it's just stuff like that I felt like, you know, I never would have learned or known about it if I never would have gotten that education from you, right? Which is, I think it's so awesome.
There was no box for cars though, just so you know.
I know. You know what's funny is that I kind of made my own box.
Oh, okay.
I made my own box. When I finally realized all the stuff that you had, I was like, you know what? I found something else that can add value to my portfolio.
You've done well. So
and I said, you know what? I'm going to go do that, right? And actually, it has really benefited me in that sense of investment, right? Because, you know, I never thought of vehicles being, you know, of value, because you always hear about people talk about, yeah, you know, you just buy it and by the time you drive it off the lot, it's depreciates like 30% what you bought it for, you know, and which is true. It's 110% true. But, you know, I found a way to figure out, you know, what, you know, is rare and what, you know, I can get out of this and say like, you know what, you know, I think I can invest into this part of it as well too, and be, you know, successful at it, you know, and we'll see how it goes. So far, so good, you know.
I remember when we first met, you had that Honda, the little sports car Honda, whatever it was. I'm not a car guy, so I just remember that. Yeah.
So that car, when Leanne was pregnant with Marissa, I had to sacrifice that car and trade it in, okay? And I had to get SUV, because now it's kind of like, you know, you got to wear your big boy pants and, you know, got to live with
Be responsible.
Be responsible, right?
Yeah.
You know, and fast forward to where we're at today, it's like I was able to get that car back. Not that exact same car, but that I had, but it's the same car model, make and model. I was able to get back. Yeah, same year, everything. You know, so it kind of like just a piece of history just came back into my life. And to me, I felt like that's more sentimental value, I guess, than it is like of just monetary value. So yeah, I was able to get that car back. That was pretty cool.
I don't know if I answered your question. Going back to the changing of companies. So there was a lot of regulatory changes and Verdeo funding, just with the market changing and everything. So we all went to what is called a mortgage banking a company, basically, where they handle more of the regulatory side of the business. As the market crashed, there was a lot more rules, and as a broker, there was a lot of things you really had to pay attention to, and you would spend more time trying to do that than actually taking care of your clients. So then I went to work for a company called Pinnacle Capital Mortgage in 2010. The owner lives in Granite Bay. They sold to Blackstone Group, and that turned into Finance of America. So I was technically the first branch in the state of California, along with a couple of the branches. And then in 2014, they sold, created Finance of America, and then we left Finance of America in March of 2022. The owner who started Pinnacle bought into PacRes, and that's why I just went back to work for the same guy, because he's a good, honest, trustworthy guy. And it turned out that Finance America closed their doors 6 months later. So
really?
It worked out fine,
Wow. Now, if that would have happened and you stayed, what, you know, at that point?
Well, the rest of them scrambled and went to other companies.
Got it.
Some came to our company, some went to other companies, but they scrambled. So
really?
Yeah.
Now, every time I talk to you, you're always kind of like checking what the market's going for, right? Like, and you're it seems like you're on it daily. I could be wrong, but you know, it seems like every day you had something different to tell me on text saying like, hey, you know, this is where we're at today or whatever it is. Like, I'm assuming you do this every single morning, like your routine when you wake up, like, is this first thing you do is just check like the Federal Reserve? Like what's your routine? Like, man, you're like a wealth of knowledge every morning. Like, I feel like Dr. Phil's texting me something, you know?
Well, there's professionals or industry that we follow. And so every morning when the markets open up, you'll see which direction they're going to go or what you anticipate in the interest rate environment. And then a lot of it has to do with inflation, follows inflation. If inflation reports are high, interest rates are going to go up typically. If inflation's low, interest rates will come back down. So because the rates are higher now because of the long-term inflation, and I don't know how detailed you want me to get in all this stuff, but in the morning, essentially, we get updates on what's, you know, basically they're explaining what's going on in the news and how to decipher what the reports have come out, because sometimes the employment report might come out strong, but at the same time there's a lot of signs of weakness underneath the surface. So, and then you kind of anticipate where the market's going. And then we get wrap-ups at the end of the day. And this is part of some of the services I subscribe to that people smarter than I am that are basically making predictions. But I don't know if I told somebody this the other day. Last week, one guy came out from Wells Fargo saying, the market's going to get a lot uglier in the second half of this year than we anticipate, and rates should go down faster. And the next day, Jamie Dimon from Chase comes out and says, we could have a rate hike again. So you got two smart guys going two different directions. So we're kind of in uncharted territories right now.
Yeah, because I did get wind that supposedly is supposed to drop possibly 3 times this year.
Yeah.
Was kind of like the talks. Again, you know, don't know, right? It's like you said, it's uncharted territory. We don't know if it's going to go up or down. Obviously, if it goes up, it gets worse. You know, if it goes down, you know, hopefully it stabilizes a little bit, right? And kind of go from there. I know on my end of it, in our industry, we see that struggle right now, you know, with the interest rates being so high, where some of my clients are quote unquote approved, but they were approved prior to those hikes, right? And at that point, you know, let's say they were able to afford a $10,000 a month, you know, loan payment, or now it's almost $14,000, $15,000, and they're looking at that going like, well, my financials can show that I can afford $10,000, but now because of the hike, I have $15,000. I technically, what it's showing, I can't afford it, and it's like one of those situations where, you know, projects are on hold. It's like we can't build.
Yeah.
And I mean, yes, it's frustrating. We do get through that, but the good part about all this is, you know, we're always in contact with them and try to figure out, like, you know, when is it a good time? When can we say, okay, let's try to work it now? You know, what can we get better right now? You know, how can we get better at that? You know, are there savings on the project that we can do to bring the cost down? Or has their financials gotten stronger where, you know, maybe on both sides that we can meet because of these interest rates, that we can kind of meet in the middle maybe to get a job done maybe. And you know, we face a lot of that daunting task more recently than anything, to try to be as successful as we can, not only as a company, but, you know, we're facing those as the economics is changing, you know.
But you're partnering with the client is what you're doing. You're partnering with the client, and you're sized at a size of a company that you can be a little more adaptive and flexible than maybe some competitors of yours that are larger, that maybe have more overhead. So you have the flexibility to be able to do that. And, you know, hopefully the cost of that product comes down so you can adjust your bid if that works too.
Yeah, you know, it's crazy. It's like as interest rates goes up, prices have gone up. Yeah. And same with labor rates, you know, because of inflation, everyone says like, hey, I can't afford to live. I can't do this. And it's like, well, if I don't have a project that's scalable via inflation type costs, it doesn't help on my side of running a business. You know, it gets really frustrating. And you know, and it's kind of like one of those things. A while back, I actually was talking to an architect, and we're both sharing. He's a partner, principal of this company, and he said, Wilson, it's hard to find good help. I said, I know. It really is, because, you know, you get a resume these days, and, you know, there's just a lot of information on there, and you bring them in, you kind of like quiz them on stuff, right? And they're kind of clueless, you're kind of going like, this paper isn't worth anything, right? And you try to get stuff going, and you know, and they're trying to command a salary that we feel like, you know, it's not
justified.
It's not justified. And we were talking, I said, you know, it's a false market, you know, because there are guys out there that's kind of like, well, if I can go to this company and get $2 more, and then, you know what, I might work there for 5 months and I'm gonna go to this other company and get another $1 or whatever it is, you know. And if that company runs out of work, it's like, you know, I might be able to go back to that other company and maybe get that same $1 that I got, or go back to my old $1. And it's crazy. And it's like, I feel like you're chasing the dollar, that it's a false market, because you can chase it for as long as you can, but sooner or later that's gonna run out, right? It's gonna run out, and there's nothing. Like right now, we're at this point. We've ran out of money, you know, there's nothing that you can do about it.
Right.
And it's so funny that you brought that up, because two of my guys that used to work for me hit me up and just said, hey, you got any work?
I was just going to say that $1 an hour is 40 hours, $40 a week. So, you know, how far is that really going to get you? And then when the market slows down and projects slow down and jobs start to slow down, they're going to wish they didn't leave for that $40 a week, you know?
Yeah.
Because they're not loyal. But, you know.
Now you have nothing.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm sitting here going, sorry, man, we replaced you with someone else. And I don't have any other, you know, deal, because everyone else is slow and I don't have, you know, I feel so bad, but it's one of those things, like, you made that decision,
but you keep your loyal people as long as you can.
Correct.
Right. So
yeah,
people gotta think about that. Well, you know, we see it in sports and everything else these days too, you know.
Yeah.
There's not that much teamwork and loyalty. It's not taught the way it used to be taught.
Right. So when you look at all that every day, you know, and in this whole deal, how does that change your dynamic of your operations? You know, is it weekly you make a shift, or do you just kind of, you know, ride it out a little bit? Like, how do you adapt and change when the market changes?
Well, I've learned through the years, going through the '06 housing crash, you know, keep your overhead low, number one. I mean, try not to commit to too much long-term high overhead, because when the market slows down, your revenue slows down, then, you know, if you own a company, you're the last person that gets paid. So if you pay your bills first, and then, you know, so keeping my overhead low, just being flexible, really working on, in our business, it's a relationship business. I mean, like you're working with your clients, but it's really relationships, trust, and just trying to gain people's trust, bringing value to them on a constant basis, and being a trusted advisor where they're going to call you with questions. And so what we saw with the housing market over the last year was that our industry slowed down drastically once again, because the rates were higher. There's just a lot less transactions. So, but what I've heard is 60% of my competition is no longer in the business. So that's one positive for us. And, you know, and you've got to be more professional. So it's kind of a cleansing of the industry, and just getting rid of maybe some of the people that weren't as professional, didn't treat it like a job. But you got to be consistent about it, and you got to build those long-term relationships. And to me, it's more about, you know, staying competitive, building a client base that's going to be a long-term client base that trusts you, and it's going to be repeat customers. It's not one time trying to make as much money on somebody in one transaction. It's more of, you got to look at the bigger picture of you've got to, you know, get the best competitive deal you can, give them the best advice you can, best service you can, and they might be your best marketing person out there, because they might refer you to 3, 4, 5 other people. Right.
And I don't think we're any different, right? And we're in the same world of customer service, being able to bring that, you know, repeat business back, or the referrals, right? And those are obviously key, because, you know, you want someone to be able to say exactly like, hey, you know what, I trust him. You should give him a call. This is the guy that, you know, I think would help you, support you, and the whole deal to make sure it goes to, you know, fruition, right? So I feel like that's, you know, it's key for us as well too, being able to, you know, retain clientele and then expand off of that, you know, and kind of go from it. Because I know it's hard to go find new customers, you know, and it's not like you just pick up a phone and someone's like, hey, I need you, hey, come on down, and but it's really I've always stressed to my staff and just kind of told them like, hey, for every client there's probably 3 other contractors knocking on their door. And we're probably one of those knocking on their door trying to get their work, but the ones that we have, they're knocking on our client's door. So we got to make sure that we got to be, on our A game to make sure that we're taking care of our clients, and at the end of the day that they can trust us, rely on us, and we keep moving, right?
Yeah. So we our goal is to provide a 5-star service. We ask for them to fill out a survey at the end, like how did we do, so we can always look at ways to improve. So, do you guys have any sort of end of project sit down meeting with clients or anything like that?
No, that's a good point that you brought up. Someone in our office brought that up, that client retention and being able to do a end of project kind of like meeting and kind of do like pros and cons and so forth, how we could be better or what were our roadblocks, and how can we be successful next time. And it's something that actually our team is kind of working on to develop to implement hopefully the next 6 months.
Because you're always going to run into obstacles. At some point, especially in your business, I'm sure, and there's things you can control, things you can't control. It's just how do you adapt, how do you deal with them, how well do you communicate along the way, and that's really more important than the obstacle itself. Maybe some people in my industry might just disappear and go silent for a while. And my thing is, hey, I'm communicating with all parties. This is what's happening. Let's all work together and let's get this fixed. And so you could do the same thing. I think is just, hey, how did we meet your expectations, and how could we improve our service? We're always trying to get better.
Right.
And I think it goes along with the client that you care.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about doing a job. It's about next time I work with you, how can I do this better? How can my company do this better? Exactly. So
those are good, kind of like tips of the trade that we're also trying to get better. No one's perfect, and I know we're not a perfect contracting business, but at the end of the day, we do our best to try to, put our best foot forward, and kind of go that. And so far it's been great, on our side. It's just, we know we can always get better. We can always figure a way to, improve and elevate our game, and sometimes it can be hard. And right now I feel like because of the state of the economy, it puts a toll on people, right? And mentally, physically, and they're always worried about, well, man, like, are we going to lose our job? Are we getting downsized, or what that may be? And is what the funny part about it is, like, we're actually moving, in a positive direction, but we're not booming like, like when times are good, but we're moving in a positive direction. And I had to diversify our portfolio a little bit, and I actually acquired another company, in late 2023, last year. And I kind of been in the works with that. And
you didn't call me about that one.
No, I didn't. I had to keep this thing really on the down low. Because of that, right? If I were to say, bring in something to the office and say, look, this is what I'm thinking of doing, right? And then all of a sudden people will start thinking, going like, oh man, is he going to bring in a ton of staff? Is he, do this? Am I going to lose my job? Or like, are we, is this position being eliminated? And it's like, causing a frenzy that it doesn't need to be caused, right? It doesn't need to go there. And I had a plan. I already knew what needed to be done, and to make sure. The biggest factor was, one, no one in my office gets, affected by this. Two, it has to work for the benefit of both sides of the company that we're acquiring and us as well too. And I think three, the other main part of this is ensuring that it's a good decision, right? So we did a full year of just analytics of the company and kind of looked at that, and we said, we looked at their financials and we're like, they're pretty strong. And then we looked at, their type of projects, and we want to make sure that their type of projects are different from ours.
Right.
Because we don't want to get into the same boat. It's like, hey, it didn't make any sense, because if we were all to do fast food restaurants or something like that, all of a sudden no one wants to build fast food. It's like, I'm in big trouble, right? And I just kind of made that egg basket a lot bigger, right? And so, we want to make sure that we had that part, that box was checked. And then the final box was like, does that benefit the other company and our company as well too, where, the other company, they were on their retirement phase. They've been in the business for over 30 something years, and they've been around long enough where, they need to pass that torch to someone. And so we had
mutually beneficial for both of you.
Yeah, so it worked out really well, and I think they're very happy, and I'm very happy, and I think it just made sense all the way around, and so then at that point, it's like, we know that they can take care of their financials in the transition, and we can take care of our financials on our side as well too. And once that acquisition came into place, it was like, it was seamless. I mean, really seamless. Like, literally, we just had a quick meeting in our conference room and just kind of made an announcement. Everyone's like, what? And then we rolled, and never had a bump in the road.
Good.
So it's been very positive. And
you expanded your scope. I mean, as the economy gets tougher and the projects are harder to find, you expanded the scope for the company as a whole.
Yeah, and we have to, because like, we don't know. I mean, we see this all day. Like, what's the biggest e-commerce right now? Amazon, right? I mean, it's
my phone doesn't work here, right?
Yeah, it's but I mean, it's so convenient, isn't it? I mean, you just type in like, hey, I want headphones.
Right.
I mean, it just automatically gives you that, and it tells you when you're going to get it. Like, literally, it's just so easy where you're going to look at it and you're like, you know what? It's going to come tomorrow at 2:00. That's great.
Right.
I can do other things, and it's just like, you order it and it shows up. I mean, it can't get any easier than that, right? And now you see a lot of that retail sector, downsizing, changing their ways of, how they operate, and stores are closing, real estate's being sold, and the days of the going to the mall per se isn't there anymore. They're tearing them down now. They're tearing them down and making them into outdoor malls. Because like, no one wants to go inside to go shop at all these different places. Like, now I'm just gonna gut everything, put multiple buildings up, and then being able to, just, hey, you know what, I'm gonna park here, shop, and I'm gonna move on, and when I'm done, I'm gonna go home. Like, that's it. Like, I don't want to sit here and walk through a mall to get to 2 stores. Like, I just want to go to that store even quicker. But it seems like that's kind of been our new time.
Yeah. Well, you got to adapt and change. I mean, that's where your scope of work has to change too. But,
110%. 110%. We always joke about this. And I think it falls on my shoulder as well too, because you and I, we both coach sports. The times I always want to ask you to go drinking and or hang out, or just quote unquote shoot the shit with you. You're like, I can't. I got softball practice. I got a softball tournament. I can't do this and that. We always made fun of you, right?
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't have those responsibilities, and now that I'm running an AAU team, and I'm sitting here going like, damn, man, I know how that guy feels, because now I'm doing the same thing. When they're asking me, hey, like last night, that Lincoln game, right? Like, hey, I need you to go. Sorry, man, I got practice. I can't go. And I get the whole like thumbs down emoji, and the middle finger, like, how dare you, and I feel like, man, I've kind of followed in your footsteps, and all that. So my question to you, how did you manage all that, with work, personal life, and coaching a team that sounded like you told me that you weren't even wanting to coach, you just kind of fell into this whole thing?
Yeah. You're at that season of life, and I'm at the end of that season. So I was thinking about that as we're gonna, if this subject came up. I mean, your kids are younger than mine, and you only have that opportunity one time in your lifetime. So you got to make it work. And the busier you are, the more efficient you have to be. And so, you're a very organized person. And I think the balance of it is, how do you balance your family or your other kids, that aren't the ones that might be doing the activity you're fully involved in. And that becomes a challenge. And looking back, I think I probably didn't do a great job of that part of it. My wife probably took the brunt of some of it, and my other daughter, she was playing at the same time, so I was coaching 2 different teams at the same time, kind of like I think you're doing, or we're doing too. But it's very rewarding though when you look back on it later on, because it's not just having an impact on your own child, but it's having the impact on all the other kids' lives. And
yes,
and there's we had one kid on our team that to this day I think she's an electrician in the union now, and had a very challenging upbringing. Lived on the south side in a trailer park, and lived with her grandma. There was a lot of drug addiction type stuff, and most optimistic kid, and just telling the kids, hey, when you get out here, you're between these white lines. The rest of your world and your stress is gone. I mean, this is a game. Just enjoy it. And we had a lot of great supportive families that helped out, and it was good. I mean, all the families enjoyed it, and managing wise, you make it work. I mean, you got to get up earlier. You spend less time at home, and you don't do a lot of stuff for yourself during that period of your life.
Right.
But looking back, it'll be the most rewarding thing. One of the most rewarding things you've done.
What's crazy is my son plays on 2 teams, but the main team is with me, and the days that we have quote unquote off, he plays for this other team if they are playing, right? And unfortunately, it's in LA, and my son kind of put me into that predicament way back in the heyday in COVID. But one of the parents asked me, it's down in LA, and one of the LA parents, and she said, how do you do this? And I go, honestly, I don't even take vacations anymore. Yeah. Like, this LA trip is my vacation. And we actually finished by 1 o'clock on a Saturday. We literally got up, like crack of dawn, 4 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, go catch that flight out. It was that Saturday after we had dinner on that Friday, right? And we get down there, and here I am. I'm a morning person, I'm bushy-eyed, but when you look at this, 12-year-old, he's kind of like doesn't have that same drive as you, and so, you watch him play 2 games. He does a great job. You get done at 1 o'clock, and you're sitting there. You're like, now what do you do for the rest of the day? What do you do? And so I decided, like, what, let's go to downtown Disney. Let's go grab a bite to eat and go hang out. Just turn that into a Disney trip that you can't even go to Disneyland.
Right.
It's like, you can hear the roller coaster, but you can't ride it.
Yeah.
You can smell the churros, but you can't eat it. But it's just one of those things that it doesn't cost that much, to just walk around and spend that time, because that's the value of what we're getting out of it, right? And so to me, I feel like I have to kind of take that and go, what? I have to value all this and figure out what I got to do to make sure that they get the best that they can get out of the game of basketball, but also the time that they get with me. Yeah. And then later on in life, hopefully they can reflect back and say, like Marissa and I went to Princeton together. Like, as growing up, you always hear about Princeton, and it's this elite school, and and being able to actually step foot on campus, and she was able to kind of do her workout and with the basketball team, and I'm sitting here going, like, this is the coolest thing ever. Yeah. Where you always look at that and you're like, wow, it's not like a bucket list, like, hey, I want to go to Egypt and see the pyramids, right? Like this is just something just here, and you just checked off that list and being like, I did that with my kid, So it's those things that I'm looking forward with Derek to see, like, what's that next level. He is going to a camp this year, and a basketball camp where he actually stays over, and he's gone for like 3 days.
Yeah.
It's probably like our first time as a father and son, coach and player, that we're actually a part, that he's doing something that he loves without me.
Yeah.
And just kind of, I'm interested to see how that's going to go, because he's the type that's always, after we're done with the game, he always asks questions like, what could I have done better? Or, hey, did you see this? And I'm like, yes, or like, no, or, we always have these conversations where, he wants to get better, but at the same time, I'm always trying to make sure I keep him on his feet, and what he does. So no, I think that what you're doing, and what you did actually with your kids, is kind of what I'm going through right now, and it's funny looking back at as much crap that I've given you. You can kind of give it right back to me now, because like now, I can't do that, because this will be the first time actually this year, okay, that I will not make it to a UOP conference tournament trip because of basketball with my kid. Like, I just can't.
Your priorities will change. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I looked at the schedule, like where, the men's and the women's seated, and how the schedule's going to work. And I look at, man, when are they going to play? Like, can I even sneak out there just for like one game, right? And I look at that, I'm going like, I just can't. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Those memories will last forever, though. Your kids will always have them. So, that's the most important thing. Not only are you impacting the other kids, but, the time with Derek, time with Marissa, those are things to always look back on. And, I just think about my parents being raised, and they're always there for the sports. And my dad was coaching. My mom would take me to hockey, and, so it was, they were super supportive. Not every child has that much support at home. So as a coach, you can be that support for them and build that relationship with them. And they may have the same memories of you that I have my parents, and not just your own kids, but the other kids on the team. If you build that relationship and that bond, and whether they play for another 2 years or 10 years, it doesn't really matter. It's that experience of playing the sport and learning how to grow and how to compete. Yeah. How to push yourself beyond limits you thought you never could get past. And that's what life's about. So, is your life a little easier now that you're not coaching? Does it lift a lot off your shoulders? Yeah, you missed it though. I spent last weekend at the Reno UOP game, and because I knew a lot of kids playing at the college level now, so it's fun to go watch them to move on to that next level. Oh, so now you're following your players that you coached whenever you have that opportunity to go watch them play. That's so awesome. When I don't, we try to follow my daughter first, of course, but yeah. But the same thing you said, my wife's like, we never go on vacation anymore. It's always softball related still. Yeah. I swear, every tournament that if we go out of town, it's like in LA, Vegas, like last year we went to like Kentucky and Dallas. It's like, we turned those into our vacation. Yeah. Like as stupid as it sounds, it's like, we went to Dallas to go play hoops, but then it's like, we drove around and go find out where JFK was shot, and go see like the memorial and all that, right? It's just one of those things, like we had to make it that way. And, going to Kentucky is, like, I want to eat at a KFC buffet, never heard of that before, right? You hear about it and you're like, man, I want to go try this out, right? And so it's just one of those things, like it's like those experiences that, we never really think about. But when we go do it now, looking back at it, it's so rewarding, and it doesn't matter about, people always talk about like wins and losses. Like, a dad is on our team is, kind of told me, he's like, we don't look at as wins and losses, we look at as wins and lessons, and how can we get better, and I've learned so much in the sport, and I've learned so much just in coaching, the ethics of it, and the people that are around me, and the people that you have to trust, and because sometimes you have to put your kids in someone else's hands, and you want to make sure that, they're have that same mentality, or that same concept. And I kind of value that, because,
when someone else's parents put their kids into my hands, it's like, you know what? They're trusting me, right? As the coach, as being the leader for them, you know? And it's like, my next step's like, you know, when I give my kids to the next coach, and I have to trust them, right? And are they going to, you know, be that coach, or are they going to be the other type of coach where they're just gonna, like, you know, mow you over, you know? And there's a lot of that in this world, and it's just, unfortunately, like, this AAU circuit is kind of crazy. But you know, I've learned so much from it. I think it has bettered me as a coach, as a human being, you know, and it's been good. Tell me a little bit about, you know, life outside of softball now, right? Like, in the sense of, you know, are you now going to go, like, chase more vacations? Or are you going to wait till your daughter graduates before you do that? Like, what's your take? Because I still feel like you still have that softball itch, but, like, what's the next step? You know, how do you get out of that? You know, if you wanted to, you know, if your daughter's done, she graduated, you know, well, you know, at that time, like, what's the next step?
Well, she's got 2.5 years left this season, and 2 more. So she'll be the top priority for us to go watch, you know, during that time. And then my wife loves to travel, so we'll do that. I started going back to the gym because I got part of my life back. You know, I mean, just you got to find other hobbies and kind of get back to what you're passionate about, or what. Because I mean, at that period of time, you kind of lose. I mean, I haven't barely played golf in the last 8 years. You know, stuff like that. And just finding a hobby. You know, getting back into competing yourself, whatever that may be. But traveling will be part of it. Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, I really hope that it'll be, you know, positive all the way around, you know, in that sense. You know, I know you as a person, you're always motivated, and you have, like, that ambition to, you know, explore and do things. And I know you can make friends with anyone, because you just know everyone in this world, man. You're like the Mr. Popular. So, you know, I think it'll be good. You know, I just want to say thank you for coming on today, you know, and sharing a little bit about you and who you are and what you do in your professional life as well, and sharing your personal life. I think that's huge. And if there's, you know, anything I've kind of taken away from this on my end of it, is that I've learned a lot, you know, from you, through you. And it has definitely made me to be a better human being on my end of it, you know. So I really appreciate, you know, what you've done. Kind of like, I look up to you as like an older brother, to, even though we don't look alike, shit, man, you know, like, you know, but I look up to you, and plus you're taller too, and has really,
he looks as much like me as my brother does.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and I think it has impacted my life and what I've been doing. So I just want to say thank you, and thank you for coming on today and sharing your story with us. You know, I think that's so awesome. And if anyone needs a home mortgage loan, please see Dean Goold at Pacific Residential Mortgage. I will have his email and phone number down below, and you can reach out to him, and we'll also put that on our website and social media. So if there's anything you need for real estate funding and things like that, please give Dean a call. He's a great individual, and you would not be like unhappy. Like, you just walk away knowing so much from this guy. So, you know, again, please give him a ring if you need his help.